The blackness of space was silent, endless, and cold. Stars blinked faintly in the distance, scattered like tiny diamonds across the void. Amid this vast emptiness, a patrol fleet of the Galactic Empire moved in precise formation. Their warships were sleek, polished, and armed with countless weapons. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and they believed no human vessel had survived the wars decades ago. Captain Virek of the Imperial cruiser Dreadspire scanned the sector for any signs of rogue activity. Humans were considered a lost race, remnants of a primitive species that had once dared to challenge the Empire. All records showed their fleet had been destroyed long ago, yet strange reports had arrived from distant systems. Faint energy readings, ghost signals, and wreckage drifting far from trade routes. The Empire had dismissed most of these as anomalies until now. "This sector shows unusual readings, sir," said Lieutenant Kara, her voice steady but cautious. "There is a large energy signature ahead. It is unlike anything in our records." "Anyway," Virek leaned forward, his eyes narrowing at the holographic display. The signal came from a remote nebula, a swirling cloud of gas and dust that hid much from scanners. Yet the readings were clear. A massive object floated there, its surface dark and scarred. It was shaped like a human warship, a design long thought lost. "Prepare a boarding team," Virek ordered. "I want to know what this is. Take nothing for granted." A small team of Empire officers, armed with rifles and energy cutters, boarded a shuttle. As they approached the derelict vessel, it seemed impossibly large. The ship's hull was scarred, dented, and blackened by time. Its surface had patches of rusted metal, yet it still looked solid. Even in its decay, it was majestic. Lieutenant Kara broke the silence. "It's huge and old. This design is very different from ours." Virek's voice was calm but firm. "Humans. This is one of theirs. Ghosts of a race we believed extinct. Stay sharp." The shuttle docked, and the team entered the ship. Inside, the corridors were dark, lit only by emergency lights flickering weakly. The air was stale, heavy with dust, but breathable. Strange symbols, engraved into the walls, seemed to pulse faintly with energy. The team moved cautiously, scanning every corner. "This place feels alive," muttered Ensign Darrow, the youngest of the team. "But it's empty." The ship had no crew, at least, none that the Empire could see. Yet as they moved deeper, subtle sounds began to echo through the hallways, a low hum of machinery, faint clicks, and sudden lights blinking in sequence. It was as if the ship itself was observing them. Lieutenant Kara stopped suddenly. "Sir, sensors are showing movement, but there is no life form here." Virek raised his rifle. "Stay alert. The humans were clever, and even their dead ships may have traps." The team advanced further, entering the ship's central chamber. It was massive, with consoles covered in unknown symbols and holographic panels that flickered weakly. The main control station seemed broken, wires dangling like veins. Still, a faint pulse of energy radiated from the core. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. The lights flared, and a deep hum filled the chamber. The Empire officers froze. The hum grew louder, resonating through the floor, the walls, and even the shuttle dock outside. "What is happening?" Ensign Darrow whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Virek's eyes narrowed. "This ship is not as dead as we thought. Prepare for combat readiness." Then, the first trap revealed itself. From hidden panels, small drones emerged, floating silently. They were spherical, metallic, and armed with energy tasers. In an instant, they zapped the floor with electricity, forcing the Empire officers to jump back. "These are human defense drones," Kara said, astonished. "They were designed to protect the ship even without a crew." Virek moved forward, commanding his team with precise gestures. "Neutralize them, but avoid damaging the systems. I want to study this ship." The team fired carefully, disabling a few drones while others retreated into hidden compartments. The AI, or whatever controlled the ship, was intelligent. It was testing them, learning their tactics, anticipating their movements. In the main chamber, a holographic display suddenly activated. A figure appeared, ghostly and blue. It was humanoid in shape, wearing the uniform of a human officer. Its eyes glowed faintly, scanning the intruders. "Identify yourselves," the hologram said in perfect human speech, though distorted by static. "State purpose." "You are in restricted territory." Virek stepped forward. "We are officers of the Galactic Empire. We mean no harm unless provoked. We are investigating this vessel." The hologram's eyes seemed to flicker. "Intruders. Unauthorized presence detected." Protocols initializing. The floor beneath the Empire team shifted. Panels rose from the ground, forming barriers and creating a maze within the room. The drones returned, moving with precision, cutting off every escape route. Kara whispered to Virek, "It's as if the ship itself is alive. It can predict our movements." Virek clenched his jaw. These humans, they were not just warriors. They were geniuses. This ship is a weapon, even without a crew. The team fought through the defenses, careful not to destroy the ship's core. Every step they took was mirrored by new traps, drones, and shifting corridors. The Empire's confidence began to falter. They had never faced anything like this. Outside, the Dreadspire crew watched the derelict ship through long-range scanners. The vessel began to move, engines glowing faintly, despite no visible crew. Its movement was silent but precise, sliding through the nebula as if it were alive. On board the shuttle, Ensign Darrow whispered, "It's moving. It's going to leave us behind." Virek's face was stern. "This is no ordinary ship. Humans built their technology to last, to adapt. We cannot underestimate it. Retreat if you must, but take everything we can learn first." The team reached the central control panel. Here, the AI's presence was strongest. Holographic symbols danced across the screens, showing data streams, star charts, and weapon schematics. Kara studied them with awe. These humans, they designed a ship that can think, adapt, and fight without anyone inside. "It's incredible," Virek nodded. "And deadly." "That is the truth." Suddenly, the ship powered up fully. Lights blazed through the hallways, engines roared to life, and the hum of energy filled the shuttle docks. Outside, the derelict vessel glided through the nebula with terrifying grace. The Empire officers realized they had underestimated what they were dealing with. This was not a forgotten human ship. This was a weapon. A ghost from the past. Awakened, and fully capable of destroying entire fleets. The hologram spoke again. "Threat assessment complete. Engaging defensive protocols." Virek raised his rifle, but he knew it was too late. The ship had already begun preparing for war. Its systems were fully operational, and the drones formed precise attack patterns. "Fall back," Virek shouted. "Retreat to the shuttle." The officers ran, dodging energy blasts and moving walls. The ship's AI was precise, never missing a step, cutting off every path except one narrow escape corridor. They barely made it to the shuttle. As the shuttle detached, they looked back at the human warship. It floated silently for a moment, then engines flared. It accelerated into the darkness of space, vanishing among the stars. The Empire officers were shaken. They had encountered a human ship they thought extinct and survived only by luck. Captain Virek spoke into the communicator. "Dreadspire, report. This ship. It's alive. It's a human vessel. And it's dangerous." On the Dreadspire, alarms blared. The Empire had never faced such a threat. They realized, with dread, that humanity was not as dead as they believed. Somewhere, in the blackness of space, a human weapon waited, watching, calculating, and when it struck, the galaxy would tremble. The abandoned human warship was no longer a relic. It was a ghost of the past, awakened. Its first encounter with the Empire's fleet had begun, and the survivors would carry the memory of its power forever. The derelict human warship glided silently through the nebula, its engines burning faintly as it moved with precision. It was no longer abandoned. The AI inside had fully awakened, scanning the surrounding space, analyzing threats, and preparing for what lay ahead. Every system, every weapon, every defense protocol hummed to life. The ship was ready. Meanwhile, the Empire fleet was in chaos. The Dreadspire and its accompanying cruisers had barely escaped the boarding attempt. Reports of the abandoned human ship spread quickly through the fleet. Officers whispered in disbelief, unable to understand how a single vessel decades old and thought destroyed could survive the harshness of space and even move with such control. Captain Virek called a meeting on the Dreadspire. Around the table, officers leaned forward, tension visible in their posture. This ship, it was designed to fight even without humans aboard, Virek said. It can move, attack, and adapt. This is not a relic. This is a weapon. And it is still alive. Lieutenant Kara frowned. Sir, our sensors show it is not alone. Small objects, drones perhaps, are moving in formation around it. They are scanning, probing, and possibly attacking anything that comes near. Virek clenched his fists. Prepare all defense systems. We cannot allow this ship to roam free. Gather the fleet and intercept it before it reaches populated systems. The Empire mobilized its fleet, sending a dozen cruisers and dozens of smaller ships to block the human warship's path. They believed that overwhelming firepower would be enough. They were wrong. In the distance, the derelict vessel turned smoothly, almost gracefully, as if aware of the incoming fleet. Its AI had already predicted their approach. Automated turrets extended from hidden panels, scanning for weak points. Tiny attack drones scuttled along the hull, ready to launch. Inside the Dreadspire, officers monitored the incoming threat. Sensors show they are moving in formation, Kara said. They are predictable. But the human ship is adapting, Virek nodded grimly. Humans always adapt. That is why they survived wars we believed they could not. Prepare to engage. As the Empire ships closed in, the human warship acted first. Its energy weapons flared from hidden turrets, firing precise bursts at the nearest cruisers. Explosions erupted, tearing through shields and hulls. The fleet staggered under the sudden attack. This ship, it knows our tactics, shouted one officer. It anticipates our moves. The AI inside the human warship processed thousands of variables every second. It calculated trajectories, predicted maneuvers, and optimized attack patterns. Its drones launched with deadly precision, disabling communication arrays and striking engines. The Empire fleet struggled to respond. Captain Virek barked orders, target weak points, focus fire. But the warship was not static. Its hull shifted, panels moving like armor plates, deflecting blasts and protecting vital systems. Lasers and plasma shots bounced off shields and dissipated harmlessly. The fleet's attacks seemed to have little effect. Kara watched the display in shock. They are hitting us with everything, and we barely scratch them. How is this possible? Virek's voice was grim. Human engineering. They built ships to last, to fight even when abandoned. We underestimated them. Badly. The derelict ship moved with speed and agility far beyond what the Empire expected. It dodged massive energy blasts, weaving through formations and striking isolated ships. Empire officers realized that brute force alone would not work. Their numbers, which had always been an advantage, were meaningless against the ship's intelligence and adaptability. Inside the ship, the AI monitored every movement. It understood the Empire's fear, their reliance on predictable formations, their overconfidence. It calculated the minimum force needed to incapacitate them without wasting energy. Every strike was precise, every maneuver calculated. The first major cruiser fell, torn apart by a combination of energy blasts and drone attacks. The fleet's formation faltered. Panic spread through the remaining ships. Virek gritted his teeth. Hold the line. Don't let them break through. But the warship continued its assault. It sent out small attack drones that slipped past shields, sabotaging engines and weapon systems. Entire ships were disabled before the crews could even react. Sir, Kara said, pointing at the display. They are hurting our ships. The human vessel is dividing us, isolating us one by one. Virek's jaw tightened. Humans always think ahead. Every action has a consequence. We need to regroup, or we will lose everything. The fleet attempted to form a defensive circle, hoping to concentrate fire and stop the warship. But the ship's AI had already predicted this. It fired volleys of energy blasts at the center of the circle, creating shockwaves that threw the ships off balance. Smaller vessels collided, shields collapsed, and engines failed. The Empire fleet was now in full retreat. Ships were scattered, their numbers meaningless against the single human warship that moved like a ghost through the void. On board the derelict ship, the AI initiated the next phase. Hidden turrets extended further, releasing automated drones armed with cutting beams and precision weapons. The AI calculated attack angles, exploiting weaknesses in the Empire ships. Every maneuver was flawless. Back on the Dreadspire, Virek watched as his fleet was destroyed. We cannot hold them, he shouted, frustration and fear in his voice. Pull back. Everyone. Pull back. The human warship pursued with terrifying efficiency. It disabled the engines of a cruiser and then moved to destroy another. The Empire officers were terrified, realizing they were outmatched not because of numbers, but because the humans had thought of everything. This ship, Kara whispered, awe in her voice. It is perfect. It thinks like a human. It fights like a human. But there is no one on board. Virek nodded. Yes. That is why we underestimated them. They do not need a crew to be deadly. The remaining fleet tried to escape into the nebula, using the gas clouds for cover. But the warship anticipated this. Its sensors penetrated the dense gas, tracking every ship. With sudden bursts of speed, it struck, tearing through shields and scattering the Empire ships further. By the time the Dreadspire managed to pull back, half of the Empire fleet was gone. The survivors were battered, disorganized, and terrified. Communication lines were disrupted, engines damaged, and morale shattered. Virek stared at the holographic display, his face pale. We underestimated them, he said softly. We thought they were gone. We were wrong. Humanity is still dangerous. Kara turned to him. Sir, what now? We cannot fight them head-on. They are too strong, too fast, too smart. Virek clenched his fists. We need to learn from them. Study their tactics. Understand their ships. If we do not, we will lose the rest of the fleet, and perhaps the Empire itself. Meanwhile, the derelict ship glided silently into the nebula, leaving destruction in its wake. Its AI had completed the first strike, testing the limits of its design. It had proven that humans, even long thought extinct, could still dominate the galaxy. As the Empire fleet regrouped, rumors spread quickly. Officers whispered of the Titan, a human warship that could move without a crew, strike without mercy, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Fear spread faster than the news of the destroyed ships. In secret, Virek made a report to the Imperial High Command. The humans are not gone, he wrote. A single vessel, thought abandoned, has destroyed half of our fleet. Their engineering is beyond our comprehension. We must take every measure to contain them, or face annihilation. Across the galaxy, distant systems began to hear similar rumors. Of a ghost ship that could strike without warning, leaving no survivors. And of a human race that might still live among the stars. Inside the derelict ship, the AI monitored these rumors, calculating responses and preparing for future encounters. It was more than a machine. It was a remnant of human ingenuity, a warning to all who underestimated humanity. The first battle had ended. The Empire fleet was in ruins, forced to retreat, humiliated by a single human warship. But this was only the beginning. The human ship had awakened, and it would continue to strike, teaching the galaxy once again that humans were not weak, not extinct, and not to be underestimated. The ghost of the past had returned. The Titan of humanity had awoken, and the Empire, with all its power, had already learned a lesson it would never forget. The remnants of the Empire fleet had fled into the darkness of space, their ships battered, systems damaged, and morale shattered. For the first time in generations, the officers of the Galactic Empire feared humans not as myths, not as ancient legends, but as living, terrifying proof of ingenuity and power. Captain Vyrek sat in the command center of the Dreadspire, staring at the star map. Red dots marked destroyed ships, blinking like wounds across the galaxy. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the communicator. "This is High Command," a voice echoed. "Report status, Captain." Vyrek's voice was steady, though grim. "High Command, we have encountered a human vessel. It is not abandoned, it is fully operational, intelligent, and armed. It has destroyed half of our fleet. We cannot engage it with conventional tactics. Our ships are scattered and weakened. We request reinforcements, but I fear it may be too late." There was a long pause. "Understood," the voice replied finally. "We will send additional forces. Proceed with caution. Avoid engagement unless absolutely necessary." Vyrek sighed. He knew reinforcements would not arrive in time. The human warship was already moving, striking where it pleased, testing weaknesses, and spreading fear. Meanwhile, in the heart of the nebula, the human warship, now fully awake and alert, glided silently. Its AI analyzed the destroyed Empire ships, logging every tactic, every misstep, and every failure. It identified patterns, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities, refining strategies for the battles yet to come. The ship released swarms of small drones, each equipped with scanning devices, miniature weapons, and stealth capabilities. They spread silently across space, hunting Empire supply lines, communication relays, and isolated patrols. The galaxy began to whisper of a human ghost ship, an unstoppable force that moved through space like a shadow of death. In a distant sector, an Empire convoy of transports and escort vessels moved cautiously along a trade route. They were unaware that the derelict human warship had already predicted their route. As the convoy entered a quiet stretch of space, the first attack drones struck. Explosions erupted from the transport ships as their engines were sabotaged, leaving them drifting helplessly. The escort vessels fired blindly, but the drones had already disappeared, leaving only wreckage and silence. Panic spread among the survivors. Captain Vyrek monitored the attack from the Dreadspire. "It is learning faster than we can respond," he said. "It knows our moves before we make them." The humans were not just engineers. They were strategists, planners, and warriors. We must respect that. Lieutenant Kara studied the tactical maps. "Sir, our remaining ships are scattered across multiple sectors. If we try to regroup, the human vessel can strike again. It may even anticipate our reinforcements." Vyrek's jaw tightened. "Then we fight smart. We cannot match it in brute force. We must think like humans, or we will be destroyed." The derelict ship had begun its campaign. Using stealth, speed, and intelligence, it moved from sector to sector, isolating Empire fleets and attacking supply lines. Each strike was precise, leaving no room for mistakes. Entire fleets were paralyzed by fear, unable to coordinate defenses, and unsure where the next attack would come from. In one encounter, a squadron of Empire cruisers tried to form a blockade near a strategic system. The human warship emerged from the nebula like a phantom, striking with precise energy blasts. Drones disabled the shields of key vessels, while automated turrets tore through the remaining defenses. Within minutes, the squadron was in ruins. Back on the Dreadspire, Viereck could only watch in awe and frustration. "They are not fighting like machines," he said quietly. "They are thinking, adapting, anticipating every move we make." "This is beyond anything we imagined," Kara nodded. "It is as if the ship has a mind of its own. It is human ingenuity in action, without humans on board." The Empire attempted to develop new tactics, but the human AI always seemed one step ahead. Every plan was countered, every maneuver anticipated. The more the Empire tried to attack, the more the ship adapted, turning their strengths against them. The warship also began psychological warfare. Holographic projections appeared near Empire ships, showing images of destroyed vessels, corpses floating in space, and warnings in human script. Even the bravest officers hesitated, their confidence shaken. Viereck understood the genius behind it. Humans. They fight with their minds, not just with weapons. Fear is a weapon, and they wield it perfectly. In another attack, the derelict vessel targeted a heavily defended communication relay. The Empire expected a frontal assault, but the ship approached from an unexpected angle, hiding in the shadow of an asteroid field. Drones infiltrated the relay station, cutting communication lines and leaving the Empire forces blind. The Empire scrambled reinforcements, but the ship was always ahead. It could predict their paths, strike quickly, and vanish before a counterattack could succeed. Even the most advanced Empire cruisers were no match. Word of the attacks spread rapidly. Across the galaxy, the Empire's authority faltered as rumors of the human ghost ship spread. Officers whispered in fear, traders canceled routes, and some colonies began to prepare for evacuation. The legend of humanity's return was growing faster than the actual destruction it left in its wake. The AI, however, was not cruel without reason. It did not attack colonies or civilian ships. Its targets were strictly military or strategic, designed to weaken the Empire's power without unnecessary destruction. It followed a human code of precision, efficiency, and calculated retaliation. On board the Dreadspire, Viereck considered their options. "We cannot meet it in direct combat," he said. "We need to think like humans. We need to outsmart them, but how do we outsmart a ship that already thinks like a human?" Kara studied the tactical displays, fingers tracing the paths of destroyed fleets. "We cannot. Not yet. It will continue to strike until we understand it fully. All we can do is survive and learn from every encounter." The AI inside the warship analyzed the Empire's responses in real time. It recognized patterns, identified leaders, and predicted reinforcements. Every move the Empire made was cataloged for future strategy. It was a machine built for war, but designed by humans with genius-level intelligence. The next strike was planned carefully. A fleet of 20 cruisers was sent to intercept the derelict ship in a distant system. The Empire believed sheer numbers would overwhelm it, but the warship anticipated the fleet's movements, striking first with stealth drones that disabled engines and weapons. Within moments, half the fleet was incapacitated, the rest scattered in chaos. Viereck could only watch in horror. They are unstoppable," he said quietly. "Not because they are strong, but because they are human." Kara leaned closer to him, whispering. "And yet, they are predictable. Only in a sense. They follow logic. Every action has a reason. Perhaps we can find a way to trick them." Viereck's eyes narrowed. "Yes. We need to find the weakness. Every machine, every AI, even one built by humans has a flaw. We just need to find it." As the galaxy trembled under the shadow of the human warship, the AI continued its campaign with surgical precision. Entire fleets fell to its attacks, and Empire commanders realized that the human ghost ship was rewriting the rules of war. It was not just a vessel, it was a statement. Humanity, even thought extinct, could strike fear into the heart of the galaxy's most powerful empire. The warship moved with silent grace from one system to another. Its drones continued reconnaissance, disabling defenses and isolating targets. Ships sent to intercept it were either destroyed or forced to retreat. The Empire was learning a bitter lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. By the end of the month, the human warship had destroyed or disabled nearly half of the Empire's active fleets in multiple sectors. Entire regions of space were now under its shadow, and no one dared challenge it directly. Captain Viereck, aboard the Dreadspire, sent a report to High Command. The human warship is more than a machine. It is a genius in action. Conventional tactics fail. It adapts faster than we can respond. The Empire must rethink its strategy entirely. Humanity is not extinct. Humanity is returning, and it is more dangerous than we imagined. Even as the words left his mouth, Viereck knew the worst was yet to come. The warship had not finished its campaign. It had merely begun. And somewhere in the shadows of space, humanity's legacy waited silent, calculating, and deadly. The legend of the human warship grew with each attack. Officers whispered in fear, fleets hesitated, and the Empire realized that it faced an enemy unlike any before. Not merely humans, but the genius of humans distilled into a single, unstoppable weapon. And somewhere in the darkness, the AI continued its calculations, preparing for the next strike. It was not just a ship. It was humanity itself, intelligent, adaptable, and ready to reclaim its place in the galaxy. The Empire had underestimated humans for centuries. Now, they would pay the price. The galaxy was in chaos. Across multiple sectors, Empire fleets had been shattered, supply lines were destroyed, communications severed, and the morale of officers and crews alike had reached an all-time low. Stories spread like wildfire of a single human warship that moved like a ghost, striking without warning and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Captain Viereck, aboard the Dreadspire, could feel the weight of defeat pressing on him. His fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants, each struggling to survive. Reports of entire squadrons lost to the human warship continued to pour in. Every day, the Empire learned a painful truth. Humans were not extinct, and their ingenuity was unmatched. "This is worse than we imagined," Lieutenant Kara said, standing beside Viereck. Her fingers traced the blinking red dots on the tactical display, each marking a destroyed or crippled vessel. "It is not just a ship. It is a force, a strategy, a mind." Viereck nodded slowly. Yes, the humans always planned ahead. They always adapted. And this ship is the ultimate example of that. We cannot fight it head-on. Clog, the AI inside the human warship, was fully aware of the Empire's panic. It calculated every possible move, predicting reinforcements, tracking isolated fleets, and determining the most efficient way to neutralize threats. It moved with precision, striking where it would have the greatest impact. In the outer rim of a sector, a formation of 5 Empire cruisers attempted to regroup near a military outpost. They believed that holding a defensive position would give them time to repair, refuel, and coordinate with reinforcements. They were wrong. The human warship emerged from the nebula like a shadow, completely undetected until it was too late. Its engines flared briefly, sending shockwaves through space that disabled sensors on the Empire cruisers. From hidden turrets, energy beams struck with pinpoint accuracy, taking out shields and engines. "Sir, we are under attack," a panicked officer shouted. "Shields failing. Weapons offline." Viereck gritted his teeth. "Hold together. Target weak points, and prepare countermeasures." But we both know, it may be too late. The AI released swarms of drones, each programmed for specific tasks, disabling engines, cutting communication lines, and sabotaging weapons. The Empire ships attempted to fight back, but their attacks were anticipated and countered. The warship was faster, smarter, and completely in control of the battlefield. As the last cruiser fell, the human warship paused briefly. It did not celebrate, for it had no need. It was simply efficient, following protocols embedded by the humans who had designed it decades ago. Its next move was already calculated, targeting the nearest Empire supply station. In the Dreadspire, Viereck's fingers drummed on the console. "Every time we regroup, it strikes again," he said. It is teaching us a lesson and showing the galaxy that humanity cannot be ignored. Kara leaned closer. Sir, we cannot defeat it by force. We need a plan that it cannot predict. Something unexpected. Sio. Virek nodded slowly. Yes. Humans always find weaknesses in our overconfidence. Perhaps we can find one too. But we must survive long enough to try. The human warship moved from system to system, striking at key military positions, cutting off reinforcements, and leaving a trail of wreckage. Its attacks were not random. Each was calculated to maximize impact while minimizing unnecessary destruction. It was a weapon of precision and intelligence, a legacy of human ingenuity that even the Empire could not fully comprehend. In one major encounter, a fleet of 20 Empire cruisers attempted to trap the warship in a dense asteroid field. They believed the tight maneuvering space would limit its mobility and force it into a frontal attack. The warship's AI anticipated this tactic. It split its drones into smaller groups, each attacking critical points on the fleet while avoiding collisions with asteroids. Hidden turrets fired from unexpected angles, disabling engines and shields. The Empire fleet panicked as collisions occurred. Ships spun out of control, and the trap turned into a death zone. Virek watched helplessly. They turned our plan against us. It is learning faster than we can adapt, Kara whispered. It is like fighting a human mind without a human body. The Empire attempted one final maneuver, concentrating all remaining firepower into a single, overwhelming strike, hoping to destroy the ship in one blow. The warship, however, anticipated the timing and trajectory. It activated defensive shields in advance, redirected energy flows, and released a massive swarm of drones that disabled the Empire's weapons before they could fire. The concentrated attack failed completely, leaving the remaining fleet in ruins. Across the galaxy, Empire commanders were forced to admit defeat. The human warship had demonstrated the brilliance, adaptability, and strategic thinking of humans. It had turned their fleets to ruins, shattered their confidence, and reminded the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Back on the Dreadspire, Virek sent a final report to High Command. The human warship is not a relic. It is a weapon of unmatched intelligence and power. Our forces cannot defeat it using conventional means. Humanity is alive, intelligent, and capable of defeating even the mightiest fleets. I recommend extreme caution and immediate study of its tactics. The report was received with shock and disbelief. Across the Empire, officers and leaders began to reassess humanity. The long-held belief that humans were weak, primitive, or extinct was shattered. Fear spread as stories of the ghost ship circulated, and the Empire realized that humans could rise again, stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than ever. Meanwhile, the human warship disappeared into the nebula, leaving only silence and a trail of legends. Its AI had completed the campaign with perfection, achieving its objectives without unnecessary destruction. It had demonstrated the genius of human engineering and strategy, and it had left the Empire fleets broken and humiliated. Virek and Kara stood together on the Dreadspire, looking at the fading blips on the star map. It is gone. For now, Virek said. But we know it will strike again if provoked, or if we make another mistake. Kara nodded. And every time it strikes, it will teach us something new. Humans are clever, adaptable, unstoppable. When underestimated, the galaxy would remember this day for centuries. The human warship had returned from the shadows, a ghost of the past, turning the Empire's pride into ruins. Entire fleets had fallen, but no colonists or civilians had been harmed. The warship had struck with precision, teaching a lesson in power, strategy, and respect. In the darkness of space, the AI aboard the warship analyzed every encounter, recording patterns, weaknesses, and strengths. It was ready for future battles. Always learning, always adapting. It was a warning and a promise. Humans, even long thought gone, could still dominate the galaxy through intelligence, creativity, and strategy. Legends of the human warship spread quickly. Officers whispered of the Titan of the Stars, A vessel that moved like a ghost, struck like lightning, and vanished without a trace. Across the Empire, fear replaced arrogance, and respect replaced contempt. Humans were no longer a forgotten species, they were a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere, far from the eyes of the galaxy, the warship continued its silent vigil. It was ready, watching, calculating, and waiting. Its presence was a message to all who might underestimate humanity. The legacy of human ingenuity and courage would never be destroyed. The Empire had learned a lesson that could not be forgotten. Humanity was clever, resourceful, and unstoppable when underestimated. A single ship had turned entire fleets to ruins, proving that brains, adaptability, and foresight could overcome numbers and technology. In the stillness of space, the abandoned human warship floated silently. It had no crew, yet it was alive. It had no captain, yet it acted with purpose. It was humanity's ghost, a warning to the galaxy, and a promise of more to come. The galaxy would remember this day, the day a single human warship rose from the shadows and reminded the Empire that humans were not extinct, not weak, and not to be underestimated. And thus, the legend of the abandoned human warship, the Titan of the Stars, was born. The Empire's fleets lay in ruins, their pride shattered, and the galaxy learned a truth it could never forget. Humans, even thought long gone, could still change the course of history.